Aaron Wexler. I am so excited to be talking to the inspired athlete. Yes.
Woohoo!
Yes, woohoo. So you are the host of Within the Game podcast, author of The Inspired Athlete, and owner of WestCoast BEACH, which is so cool. And we're going to talk about all of that. But first, I always like to ask people, and I was reading, I'm going to have your website pulled up, and I don't think I really knew about this, about when you quit your UCLA Division I volleyball team. So tell me about that experience, because you call it a dark night of the soul. So tell me about that.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor. I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, thank you.
When I walked away from the team, that was a really tough moment for me, right? Because I worked so hard to get there, and I worked so hard, and I was putting in all this work, and I had 2 surgeries, and after my second surgery, I kind of felt deflated, right? And I remember that moment when I went up to coach and I shook his hand and I said, "That's it, I'm done." And I wrote about that because it took me years to forgive myself for that. Right. I did go back and apologize to him after, and I had that moment where I looked at him in the eye, and I wrote about that in the book, and I was able to go back and be able to volunteer for the women's team and win a national championship in 2011. And that was 5 years after I left the team. But it still bothered me, and it ate at me. Right. So yeah, it took me a long time to really like be, comfortable with myself and get to a place of like, you know what, let me share this so that maybe I can help someone else and inspire someone else who's going through that frustration, who's going through a really tough time, whether it's a physical injury, whether it's just like you're not getting playing time, because that's what was happening to me, right? I was always number 2, and there was always someone in front of me, and that was frustrating. And so I guess the reason why I'm talking about it now and I wrote about it is to say, hey, if you're that person, stay with it and reach out for help, because that's something I didn't do in that time period. I should have reached out for help and really, asked for guidance through that. But yeah, so that's the whole reason why I'm talking about it now, and happy to talk about it more and inspire someone. If you're going through a tough time, stay with it, right? Get through the valleys so you can get to that mountaintop.
Wow. I only participated in team sports a very, very short period of time. Figure skating was my passion. It's what I did, since the age of 4. They put me in lessons when I was 7. And I had done a couple of team sports here and there. So it's a whole different dynamic when you're on a team sport and you're an individual sport. And I think like even now I play tennis, and I'll be starting in a league, USTA league, starting in January.
Love tennis.
And I'm so obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And talk about mindset and tennis. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. But at my age, and to not get injured and things like that, you're better off doing doubles, because in singles, there's a lot more running back and forth. There's more risk of twisting your ankle, things like that. But I only know how to compete against myself. Right. And in tennis, I can do that with another person. So what is it? I'm curious about that and what you talked about, how you were always number 2. What will you tell somebody today that's in that same situation that isn't getting the playing time? Because I remember my son played baseball and basketball, and he didn't always get to start, didn't always, sat on the bench more times than he would like, that kind of thing. How can you inspire that athlete? Because you probably write about it in your book. What can you tell that person that feels like that?
Yeah, so much to impact there. The first thing I would say is, like, focus on the gratitude of the opportunity that you have first, right? Like, I get to be here. I get to wear this uniform. I get to be a part of this team, right? Like that should be the focal point of your foundation of where you should be starting from in your mindset, right? Let's just be stoked. Like, I remember when I first put that UCLA jersey on, and I was like, wow, I made it, right? Because for me, it was all about like, I want to get to D1. When I was in high school, I was like D1. I had that laser focus. Hey, Aaron, you want to come to a party? Nope, I got to go train. Hey, Aaron, you want to do this? Nope. I got to go do my thing. Right. And I was so focused. And when I got there, I was like, yes, but looking back on that journey, I was kind of like number one, and then when you get to the next level, then maybe there's someone in front of you. Right. So I would look back on that, and I would I would try to inspire someone to start with the mindset of thank you for this opportunity, because not everybody gets that opportunity, right? So let's start there. Then I would say, let the person in front of you inspire you, right? Let that person inspire you and take something from their game, in whatever sport, and even in business. This is relatable to business too. Whoever's in front of you, right? Yeah. Like don't worry about, oh man, I'm number 2. No, it's like, oh, that person's in front of me because of X, Y, and Z, and really unpack that and figure that out to then apply that back to your game, right? And then what happens when you do that is that your ego starts to diminish, because what happened for me is my ego was like, well, why am I not number 1? Right? Well, why am I not getting playing time? Right? And when your ego is loud like that, that can really frustrate you, and it can put you in the victim mentality. Well, I'm not number 1 because I'm not getting looked at enough. Well, I'm not number 1. I'm not getting playing time because I'm not getting a fair shot. That's all ego stuff. So now that I'm aware of that, I would inspire someone to say, let's start with that gratitude, create that foundation of thank you so much. This is a beautiful opportunity. So appreciate this. And then, if there's someone in front of me, okay, great. Let's figure out why and start to unpack it and then apply that back to myself.
There were so many golden nuggets in that, Aaron. And for those of you who are not athletes, everything you just said applies to life. Because it's all about mindset. Yeah. And I was thinking too, like the journey from high school athletics to college. And for those that, I don't even know what the percentage is, you may know more than me, to go from D1 to professional, right? For those sports that have a professional team, right? Not all sports do. So I would imagine that it would be the same, that whole journey, because how many football players that are great in college, they get to the NFL and they can't make it.
Yeah.
Even though they're amazing, right?
Yeah. And the whole athletic journey, it's a tough journey, right? It's actually difficult to just stay in that mindset I just talked about. Oh, I'm so thankful for, no, it's hard to do that because you're constantly competing. Right. So I would say, for any parents or coaches or any leaders out there, that is part of the job, is to how to inspire the athlete or, the business owner or whoever it may be to keep going, to stay competitive. Yes, because you want to win, right? You want to win, right. But at the same time, to stay focused on those mindsets I spoke of, which is that gratitude mindset, that appreciation, because that to me is just an overall vibe. You can be in gratitude vibe, but you still like, I'm gonna win. Let's go. You can still have that fire, right?
Absolutely.
But the overall vibe is like, thank you so much for this, right? Because without that, you may lose sight, and you may get frustrated, and you may let the ego take over.
Oh, 1,000%. Well, and it's also by shifting with gratitude and being so grateful for the opportunity, whatever that is, it puts you energetically into a higher frequency. And maybe some of those athletes, instead of being in that ego mindset, if they were to do that, they may get noticed more. They may perform better, right? Because of course it's going to affect your performance.
Yeah. And you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have wins and losses, right? And that all comes with it. But the overall perspective of where am I at and where am I going, that's what creates happiness, right? The theme of your show is happiness solved. I mean, I want to be happy on my journey. Yeah, there's going to be wins, there's going to be losses, but I want to stay stoked. I want to stay inspired, right? That to me is the trajectory. That's where I'm heading. Yeah, I want to win. Winning's super fun and super fantastic. And that is a huge goal for all of us. But I want to be stoked, and I want to use my energy so that when I go along my path, and especially even when I have a loss or I slip, I make a mistake, I make a bad decision, I still remember my trajectory. Okay, I'm still on this path. Okay, cool. I messed up. Okay, what do I need to learn there so I can not do that again? But I'm still on this path. I'm still on this path, this trajectory to inspiration and to happiness.
And just to add to that a little bit, it also builds your resilience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the resilience, that's a great word. And there's a great energy on that word, because when those losses come, or when the haters come, or when, when the negative energy seeps through, how do we deal with that? Right? Do we let that get to us? Do we go quit like the old version of me did? Or do we say, you know what, this is happening for me? And that's something I really, really, I want to drive this point home for a second. Life happens for you, not to you.
Yes.
Everything happens for you, not to you. And that to you mentality is a victim mentality. Even back then, when you brought up, when I left the team, I was a victim. I was like, this second injury, it was the exact same knee injury. It was a medial meniscus tear on my other side, which I had the exact same injury 4 years prior on the other knee. So I was looking at that and I'm like, this happened to me, man. The weight coach put too much weight on it. Whatever it was, even it was the universe, God, whatever it was. Oh, this happened to me. Why'd you do this to me? And now I look back and I was like, all that happened for me. It happened for me because you know what I did? I learned, first of all, I learned a lot about that. Like you said, about resilience. I learned a lot about that. I learned how to be accountable and responsible. I learned how to apologize as a man and take responsibility for my actions. And I also learned alignment. I learned how to have better physical alignment. My hips, my ankles, my knees, all that tracking. I actually went to school after all that injury and I became NASM, which is National Academy of Sports Medicine certified personal trainer. And I learned about the kinetic chain, right? So all of that, going back to all that stuff, those injuries happened for me.
Wow. So much great stuff. And, people are going to say no to you. It's going to happen all the time. We're going to win some, you lose some. So everything that you're saying, I hope everybody's taking notes right now, because it's so invaluable. And that's a good segue. We're going to talk about your podcast in a minute, but you own WestCoast BEACH.
Mm-hmm. How
lucky is everybody that participates there to have you yes, no, because here's the thing, I'm a retired U.S. national and international figure skating coach. I have a gold medal in ice dancing. I was the type of coach that drove home mindset, because that's my foundation. And I've always been like that because of, the experiences that I've had in my life. But most coaches don't. Most coaches do not go there. Right. So how lucky are they? That's incredible what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
So talk about that, because it's really cool. I love this. Only in LA would you have something like that. We don't have anything like that on the East Coast.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I'm gonna go all the way back. Okay. Since you mentioned, my decision to leave that team, there was another decision that happened when I was coaching for another club, and halfway through the season, the owner of that club decided to let me go. And I was coaching kids. It was a twos team. There was a lot of kids on the roster. There was an expectation for me to act a certain way as a coach, make sure everyone played, make sure we're trying to win. It was a challenge, right? So halfway through the season, they decided to go in a different coaching direction. And that was a low point in my life. That crushed me. I actually remember going to the bar by myself for the first time in my life that day. And I sat there and I was like, what happened right there? I thought I was like this whole inspirational coach and I'm doing this for the bigger reasons. And they didn't see me for some reason. Did I do something wrong? So I remember that moment. And going back to what I just said about everything happens for you, that moment catapulted my entrepreneurial drive, because I had this entrepreneurial drive for a long time, just wasn't quite sure how to apply it. So I used that experience. And I actually went home and I wrote a business plan for starting my own club. And at that time, I had my best friend join the club that I got fired from. So I got him a job there. He was doing great. They loved him. But I told him after, I said, hey, why don't you leave that? Me and you are going to go start our own thing. And he's like, you're crazy, man. I got a great job. I got good pay. You got me this job. Appreciate it. But I'm not leaving. And I said, no, you're leaving. And we're going to go do our own thing, and we're going to be our own bosses, and we're going to be entrepreneurs. So I finally talked him into it. We wrote the business plan together. We attracted funding for it. I sat down with a VC, a venture capitalist. I showed him my vision, and I'll never forget this. This is, for any entrepreneurs out there, this is actually a good lesson right here. So I created this business plan, and I spent so much time on it. I wrote out my full vision and everything. I was really proud of it. Made it, like, laminated it, put the graphics on it and everything. And I went to the VC, put a tie on and everything. And it was really funny because he took the vision of the business plan, and he, like, skipped through the whole thing to the money sheet. He wanted to see, like, the ones and zeros. And I'm like, man, you didn't even look at
here.
My mistake was I put that on the end. So, like, if I were to ever do that again, I'd put that on the front, and I'd show the VC, the venture capitalist, the money right away, the profit loss, the projected income, and what he could make back as an investor, so I would put that right on the first page. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. But going all of this, fast forward 9 years later, we're in our 9th year. We have 9 coaches on staff. We have girls and boys from 6 to 18. And it's a year-round program. And what kind of makes us a little bit separate from other programs is we tend to focus more on personal development. Yes, we want to win. Like I said before, winning is great, but it's not everything, and it's not the focus for us. The focus is get 1% better every day. That's our tagline. And it's really about personal growth. It's become the best version of yourself. We create an environment where you can fail. It's okay to fail. And in that process, you succeed, right? And so you learn how to fail, and you learn how to succeed, and you learn how to be proactive, and you learn how to connect with others, and you learn how to take in criticism, and you learn what it's like to push yourself. So we create this environment of learning and progress and personal development.
That is priceless right there, because not many programs have an interest in that.
Right.
They really don't.
Right.
I mean, I can't tell you, because I work with elite ice dancers right now. I'm the athletic mindset coach, sports psychology coach, whatever you want to call it, for an international training center that's down the street from me. And we have some of the top coaches in the world that are coaching there. And as a result, they've got 24 teams. I think it's 24 ice dancing teams that compete for all over the world. One of my clients, they compete for Mexico, believe it or not, because in the figure skating world, it's easier. You have a better chance of making it to higher level competitions if you're not in the United States.
Sure.
If you can represent another country, that's why they do it. But it's not a big focus there. It's not a big focus at all. And in certain sports, and in any sports really, but there's certain sports where it's even more important, the mindset, just because of, like, in figure skating, you fall, you got to get up and act like nothing happened, right? And you just got to keep going. And that's a really hard thing to do. But you'd be surprised how many places I've reached out to just say, hey, can I come talk to you? And they're just not interested. And something's got to shift in athletics. And whether it has to start in the high schools or even before that, to really get these coaches to understand the importance of mindset, not just for their athletes and their team and the success, but you're setting these people up for the rest of their lives and getting them to think a certain way.
Yeah. And I would just say this, the shift that should probably start to happen is this pressure from being so performance based. Because, right. And especially for your sport, right? That's a performance. You're taking a stage, right. The lights are on you, and you can't really mess up. You have to be perfect, right? You're being judged on your performance. And look, as a society, we do that all across the board, not just in sport. We do that in business. How well is your business doing? What's your, what's your profit loss? Are you successful? Right.
Right.
I think as coaches and leaders, we have to start to shift that. Those things are okay. I'm not saying those are, that maybe they should be part of the focus. Yeah. It's good to be a performer. It's good to take the lights, right? So not everyone is comfortable in the spotlight, but what we're talking about is more intrinsic, the whole idea of stay inspired and mindset training is, who are you becoming as a person? Not who are you, what do you look like, right? In the whole
Right.
Instagram world that we're in right now, right? It's what do you look like, right? And so I think, like I said, I think I think what we have to do as leaders is try to find the balance of, yes, you're under the lights, you're on performance, but if you mess up, if you fall from a triple axel, okay, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. You know, can you get up and recover and maybe even put a smile on your face and not just be so tight and be like, yeah, I fell, you know? I mean, I get the other side of it too, where, you know, we want gold medals. As a gold medalist, you know, like that perfection there's something to be said for that craftsmanship. I get that too. But I'm just saying, most people who take sport on they're not going to go to the highest levels. They're going to go in other fields of life, of business, of whatever, you know, and my message is, stay freaking fired up no matter what their performance is like, right? Stay inspired. If you have a bad performance, be thankful for that. That happened for you.
Yeah.
You had that was for you so that you could learn something. So what? So what if you fell from the triple axel? So what if you hit the ball in the net? So what if you lost in the championship? It's not a huge deal. You know, I used to make such a big deal out of losing. It used to crush me. I'm sure you can relate as an athlete. Losing sucks. But now, knowing what I know and talking to people and really connecting and learning more about who we are as a society, that we're evolving to become less about what we look like and more about our energy and what we put out energetically. That is what we're trying to teach. It's not just so much about the result. You know, it's about the process. It's about the journey. It's about what we learn along the way. It's about who we become. It's about where we're going. Whew.
Whew is right. And if you can raise your frequency and your energy and everything that you were just saying, if you can do that, the success will happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're not playing victim anymore. You know, you've elevated your mindset, you've elevated your frequency, your energy levels. And as a result, you're going to start attracting more good into your life. And I think that's the piece that people forget about and they don't know.
Well, also too,
you know,
yeah. Sorry. I was just gonna say, well, also too, it's how you define success, right? Is success just winning? Is success just making $1 million? Like, you know, and we all have the ability to define our success every day, you know? And so that's really important too. What does success mean to you? You know, I think that's a huge part of happiness solved, right? What does that mean to you? And you, me too, all of us should take time to figure that out. We should take alone time. We should take time to get quiet, to be like, what does that mean? What does that feel like? It's actually more of an emotion, right? What does it feel like?
Yeah. Wow. You were really incredible. I know you from the different groups that we're in and this and that, and I see all your reels, but you really are amazing. You're really quite amazing.
Thank you.
In your energy. You're very inspiring.
Well, thank you.
You fit that well, for sure. All right. Last but not least, tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So the podcast is called Within the Game. And the idea on the podcast is at one point, I looked at everything, including the sport that I love, including business. I looked at all of it as a game. I actually saw this one, this really cool episode on Joe Rogan, where he interviewed Kevin Hart. I think he's interviewed him a few times, but Kevin Hart eloquently talked about how everything's a game, how he talked about his stand-up comedy as a game. He talked about his business as a game. He talked about money as a game, right? And it really hit home for me. And so I thought, you know what? Let's get in the game. Let's get within the game and really unpack all the cool lessons and the personal development and the personal growth and the expansion that happens while you're in a game, and especially if you're playing to win, right? So that's the idea for the podcast. And then halfway through my writing process for this book, The Inspired Athlete, I was doing, which it just came out, which is right here. I was doing all these interviews, right? And I did these interviews. This is pre-pandemic, 2019. I was doing interviews with amazing people, similar to this interview. And I was going to coffee shops, and I was doing the interviews and just getting so much value and just having so much fun. And every time I left an interview, I'd feel so charged up. I'd be like, wow, that was amazing. Then pandemic. So I couldn't do that in person anymore, but I was doing them on Zoom, right? And so I was doing all these Zoom interviews, and again, same thing happened at the end. I was like so charged up. And so I was like, you know what? Rather than wait for the book to come out, why don't I just publish these interviews as a podcast and start a podcast and start to create an audience before the book comes out? So that's what I did. And I'm so glad I did, because now it's opened up my world. I actually, and you can relate to this as a podcast host, I actually have a platform to offer somebody, right? And that's a very powerful thing. So if anyone out there is listening and they're thinking of starting a podcast, do it. Do it. Don't even second guess it. If you have a message inside you, or even not even, you don't even have to have a message. If you have like a desire to connect, I actually call it now a curious manifester. I like to be surrounded by curious manifestors. If you have that curious manifesting energy inside you, just start a podcast. You don't even have to interview people if you don't want to. But for me, I love it. I love to connect with people from all different types of disciplines. I've interviewed many athletes, many champions, but I'm starting to go more into the business world and even the spiritual world, starting to really explore the spirituality. Right. Because I think, like I said before, the intrinsic part of us, right? I want to say this real quick. I believe the people that identify with the feeling of being heart-based, those are the people I really identify with, right? Because it's one thing to be a winner. It's one thing to be successful. It's one thing to like desire success. Those are all great things. I'm not taking away from those things, but to be heart-based on top of those things makes it such a full package. It makes it such a, I keep going back to your title of Happiness Solved. It makes it such a joyful experience, so that when you get that success and when you experience the success and the wins, you can feel it in your heart. And then you start to really radiate this positive energy based out of love, So that's a long answer to the podcast, but that's what the podcast has opened up. The podcasting world has opened up that world inside of me.
I love podcasts. I know they're not for everybody, but obviously our listeners like it because we continue to have followers, which is amazing. And I too am a huge Joe Rogan fan, and I'm going to have to go look up that interview with Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
Check out Aaron. Go to his website, theinspiredathlete.com, because unlike Joe Rogan, my audience would not stick around for 3 hours. So I like to keep it a little bit short. But on your website, and I just want to throw this out there because I'd love people to just check it out. You have the Pyramid of Inspired Living, and this is so incredible. At the bottom, there's love, health, gratitude, family. The next level is clarity, confidence, creativity. And then we go up to mindfulness, bold action. And the top is inspired living. This is absolutely beautiful. Beautiful. And you are so amazing. Much. And you and
thank you so much.
I'm going to put this out there right now. We're going to be on stage speaking together in the near future.
Let's go.
Let's do it. Because I want to see you on stage because you are incredible.
Awesome.
You are incredible.
I'll give you a little teaser. I'm actually planning a live book launch for 2023. And it's going to be kind of like a personal development, personal growth summit. So I'm going to have a panel of speakers, and we're going to kind of get into all this stuff a little bit more. But it's also going to be to celebrate this book project. But I just want to touch on the pyramid real quick. I'm so appreciative that you mentioned the pyramid, because if you're listening out there and you're like, "Oh, why did he make a pyramid?" Well, I'll just briefly tell you the story behind that. I made the pyramid because I saw the Pyramid of Success by John Wooden every day. It's painted on the outside of UCLA's gym. And if you don't know about that, please go Google that. John Wooden, 10-time national championship basketball coach. And he's got a statue outside of Poly Pavilion at UCLA. He's a legendary coach and a leader. But he made this pyramid, and I looked at it every day. And the very, very top of his pyramid is competitive greatness. And like we just talked about in this episode, that's great. I'm totally on board with that. But for me, that's not quite at the top of my pyramid, right?
Yep.
The top of my pyramid is the trajectory of where I'd like to go every single moment of my day, every single day of my life, which is that inspired feeling. Inspired living to me includes competitive greatness, but it also includes when you lose, when you have a mess up. It includes that. It includes relationships. It includes personal growth. It includes so much, right? So that to me is the trajectory. And it also includes emotional intelligence, right? It includes like that feeling great. And it also includes when I'm not feeling great, that's okay too. You know, so it includes all that. So I wanted to inspire anyone out there who is thinking, okay, well, what's my pyramid then? What is important to me? Make your own. Make your own. And get inspired by other people's. It doesn't have to be a pyramid either. It could be a compass. It could be anything that reminds you of the direction you'd like to go in.
I love that. I love it, Aaron. This has been such an amazing conversation. I'm so proud of you. We both do have an amazing mentor, Craig Siegel. Shout out to Craig.
That's right.
He's amazing.
Craig. That's right.
Greg.
The CLS experience. Everyone should go check that out.
That's right. CLS experience. You got to check it out for sure. And check out Aaron's podcast and go to his website, theinspiredathlete.com. And your podcast is Within the Game podcast.
Yes, thank
So
you. And my new book is called The Inspired Athlete. You can find it on Amazon. And Sandee, I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. I really love the theme of your show. And I love the energy that you bring. And to all your guests, peace and blessings and much love.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Aaron. And thank you, everyone, for listening today.
Thank you.